You're alone, on a planet, no hope of survival. But you're also not sitting next to Phil anymore in that cubicle, so... Win?
Is this an issue for Prime 4? I honestly don't think so. So, I didn't expect to make another video about Prime 4 before its release, because I didn't want to get spoiled or didn't even really want to be part of the discussion or conversation in any way, before I could form my own opinion through my own experiences with the game itself. But sometimes scrolling Twitter forces your hand, in more ways than one. And I got into quite a lot of engagement with people who seem to have an issue with these NPCs, or very specifically this NPC in Prime 4, who has been seen in the recent preview gameplay that we have gotten. I don't know, well, firstly, I should give off a disclaimer. I am a big fan of Metroid Prime 3, which some people in this conversation will find disqualifying. Many people online seem to have the very specific conviction that Metroid has to always be isolated, and there can be very little or no NPCs that accompany Samus during her adventures, which is a completely valid opinion. And if you're going to have NPCs, at least don't make them annoying, like very many people are apparently seeing Miles McKenzie. He seems to be an annoying, nerdy mechanic character who follows Samus around and just overly expositorily explains everything she is doing or has to do, and has this quippy kind of humor, which many people have called MCU one-liners or millennial humor and all of these sorts of things. Many people take issue with the fact that characters like this do not feel like Metroid. But this issue seems to be way more divisive at first glance than you would assume. I have seen a lot of people getting a lot of likes on posts that are supportive of Miles and his inclusion in this game and in these preview gameplay videos, and then there's the other people who say that their experience is completely ruined if characters like Miles are part of a Metroid game. And I think that both sides do have a point at some level. Firstly, I think we should debunk some misconceptions about Metroid, because one big section of the conversation is that Metroid should always be isolated and that it has always been isolated. Absolutely, you can have your opinions on Metroid Prime 3, as I just said, or Fusion, and any of the games in the franchise that have more exposition and NPCs and people and characters interrupting your adventure as Samus going alone in the world. You can criticize those games all you want. Many people love Metroid specifically because it's only Samus going against the world or going against an entire alien planet somewhere outside in the far reaches of space. But to claim that stuff like this has never been done before isn't exactly true. Prime 3, its beginning is full of characters, some of them also very quippy, like Gandrada and Rondas. Just before Dark Samus blasts all of them with corruption, Rondas says, "Justice will prevail," and all that stuff. Right, Samus? And when Gore is destroying Samus's ship later in Elysia, he says, "Just in time." The quippiness has already been in Metroid. The cat's out of the box with that one. So if you want to criticize Prime 4, be my guest, but you will also have to criticize Prime 3, and honestly also Fusion. Like Fusion, it's not quippy, but it has a lot of exposition that you do not need in a Metroid game usually, but some people like it. I think one of the best things of Metroid is the very fact that it has this variety, and not every single game has to be like the previous one, which I think Retro Studios realizes, because this is quite a big departure from the very first Metroid game, but it's a very natural arc of cinematicness that this franchise has been on, the Prime franchise specifically, because Prime 1, again, had almost nothing, Prime 2 also pretty much nothing, and then Prime 3 had more, and now Prime 4 has a full cast. And it's fine if you don't like that. There are criticizable aspects to this decision, but I don't find myself getting very troubled with this fact, because, well, apparently Miles is pretty much only in the opening section, in the preview gameplay that we have received, which kind of distorts your view of the whole thing, because we have received approximately 20 minutes of gameplay from Prime 4's opening, and Miles is apparently mostly in just the first 20, 30, 40 minutes of gameplay. Again, you can criticize if you still don't like Miles at all, but he's only in the beginning of the game. Prime 3 had like a tutorial section that was 2 hours long. Even though I do like the game, I can definitely see that that's an issue for many players. Like, it shouldn't take 2 hours to get into the actual meat of a Metroid game. Planet Norion and GFS Olympus especially, you don't even visit Olympus again. But Prime 4 seems to lean closer to the side of Prime 1's and 2's opening sections in length. Miles is the opener of the game, and his personality, if you actually pay attention to the gameplay that has been shown, is very clearly supposed to be expository because he's kind of like the tutorial character. And he is a replacement for the 2 hours of gameplay that you had to suffer through in Prime 3 if you didn't like that game or if you didn't like that section of the game. Miles is a condensed version of those 2 hours. So you get all of the exposition that you needed during that time, but in a probably much shorter time. And I don't think Miles is going to be a big part of the game. So that's how is that an issue? And ultimately, I think, honestly, I think he's kind of funny. I'm sorry, I know. People say that he's kind of like using millennial humor. Honestly, maybe I'm getting to my like millennial era of being a Gen Zer, but I don't see it. It doesn't really sound like MCU humor or millennial humor or whatever these accusations are.
Oh! Whoa! You are sneaky quiet, you know that?
It can be corny, yeah. Like millennial humor is also corny, and I guess that's the correlation, but I don't see how corniness in itself makes it millennial humor. And finally, these gameplay previews are showing the game in the most like normal way that you're going to play them. So they are not going to mess with any of the settings, mostly. But the settings did include, apparently, turning off gameplay exposition. Many people have an issue with specifically Miles talking during gameplay and interrupting the atmosphere, and that doesn't seem to be an issue if you just turn off the dialogue during gameplay. That's not going to fix your issue completely if you have an issue with this, but ultimately I'm not really worried about Prime 4. Prime 4 seems to be exactly the type of game that I wanted, with world building closer to the first 2 games, but with a heavier emphasis on story from the third one. Does Metroid have to be isolated? I would say no. Like, not all of it at least, obviously. I absolutely love Metroid games, specifically for their isolation, and Prime 4 is very clearly going to have it, even with all of the supporting cast in play. I don't think they're going to have that much of an impact on the game, considering most of the gameplay we have seen has been of Samus alone. But on the question of Metroid being isolated, obviously many people have gravitated towards this franchise specifically because of how isolated it feels. And that is a big part of Metroid. That is going to be a part of this game, very clearly, because we have mostly just seen gameplay of Samus on her own by herself. Only this gameplay preview has really even given us a glimpse of these NPCs. You're still going to have your like isolated feeling that we all love about Metroid in this game. I don't think Metroid has to be very strictly just Samus all the time. We have seen already, we have precedents for Metroid games having exposition and dialogue and supporting casts and all of that stuff, and I don't think that's going to go away. I do think that Metroid does have to evolve with different kinds of gameplay options and experiences and story experiences that aren't always available if you're only going to have Samus on her own. That doesn't mean they have to abandon the feeling of being isolated, because that's still obviously a very big part of the Metroid games, but again, they are not going to do that. Prime 4 is going to have an isolated feeling to it, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. However, if you want to play other Metroid games while waiting for Prime 4, especially if you're a newcomer, I have a video on how you can get into Metroid games. I have a very surprising answer at the end of the video, so please go check that video out from my main channel, from the link in the description, or the link from the card, or the link from the end screen right here. I have all of these options available for you, so you have no excuse not to check out the video. See you on the other side. I am not going to comment on this game before it releases anymore, because I'm very excited, still. Goodbye, and good night, everyone, everywhere.